This program is sponsored in part by the National Catholic Society of Foresters. Hello again and welcome to Looking at Social Justice. I'm Jim Grant and I direct social justice ministry here in the Diocese of Fresno, and it's a privilege for me to have a guest today who is not only a friend, but is someone that has been working and discerning his own social justice commitments in the diocese. Rooted in the parish of St. Alphonsus here in Fresno, but also St. Rita in Tulare, funeral director, and very committed to the ministry with the African American Catholic ministry in the diocese, Dr. Ron Smith is going to open up for us today something very personal about his own discernment of his vocation and also commitments that he is continuing to make in the area of social justice. I'd like to begin, Ron, if we could, with a video. It's only 90 seconds long. It comes from Pope Francis every single month. But in March of 2018, he decided to ask us to look at discernment of our vocations. Let's see what the Pope tells us back in March.
El tiempo en que vivimos nos exige desarrollar una profunda capacidad para discernir. Discernir de entre todas las voces, ¿cuál es la voz del Señor? ¿Cuál es la voz de Él que nos conduce a la resurrección, a la vida? Y la voz que nos libra de caer en la cultura de la muerte. Necesitamos leer desde dentro lo que el Señor nos pide para vivir en el amor y ser continuadores de esta sumisión de amor. Recemos juntos para que toda la Iglesia reconozca la urgencia de la formación en el discernimiento espiritual, en el plano personal y comunitario.
Ron, it's so great to have you right after that wonderful weekend down in Visalia. And I guess what we could reprise here is Fighting God's Call on My Life. It was your real personal effort to share your own discernment process and what it is that you are deciding to pay more attention to. It was a great workshop. What do you want to tell us about that and about your life at this point, Ron?
Well, Jim, thank you for having me here today. Congress for me, it was a great opportunity because 18 years ago, actually 16 years ago, a friend gave me a Bible. And she wrote an inscription in it, and she asked me to read it and to get to know God and to let God get to know my heart. And from that point forward, I grew up Catholic at St. Alphonsus Church. I went to San Joaquin Memorial High School. I was confirmed under Bishop Joseph Madera back in May of 1986. But, I went off to college and kind of, you lose your identity as a Catholic when you go to college. And some people just when you become an adult. And so I received the Bible. I started reading the Bible every day. And by the time I got to the New Testament, my life had changed. The people I was associating with, the things I was doing, and not like I was doing a lot of crazy things, but I made lifestyle choices because I wanted to live as a better Christian, as a better person. I started going to church on a regular basis, and for me, I started to, as I was reading the New Testament, I started to get to the point where I couldn't go to sleep after reading the Bible. I would have to get a piece of paper and a pen out, and I'd start writing, reflecting. Sometimes it'd be too powerful. I'd open up my computer and I would just start typing things. And it was just amazing just how this started happening, and it was just not just once or twice, but more and more often. So I started sharing things via email. And so my friends at the time thought I was going crazy, or just on this something just overly religious, maybe born again, because they weren't used to it from me.
Well, yeah.
And all of a sudden this transformation. And so in 2008, for a Christmas gift, I said, what am I going to give everybody? So I went through all my compilations of all my emails and posts I had written there, and I created a book. It was bound, it was like 80 pages. And I gave it out. So my mom, people who'd never on email saw this and were just like really impressed with this side of who I am, because they just did not know that this Christian, overly Christian, prayerful person who's reflecting and sharing and trying to live his life, they didn't know it. So at Congress, I've been trying to discern over the last few years just what makes sense for me. And in 2012, I was able to go to the National Black Catholic Congress Convention. And while there was a workshop I attended called the New Evangelization. It was based on something that Cardinal Timothy Dolan had prepared and remarks he had given to the College of Cardinals earlier that year. Wow. And he was evangelizing to us to go out and to spread the good news. And as Catholics, no one ever told us to go out and evangelize before. It's go to church, be a good person, and that's it. But he was giving us that command to go out there and to evangelize. And to believers, non-believers, Christians, other religions, and don't go out trying to convert people. Just go, and how you live your life, your thoughts, your words, your deeds from our penitential act. Go out there and show people what it means to be a Catholic. And if you do that, you're going to spread the good news of Jesus Christ to people, and you're going to let people know that you're a Christian and that you're a believer.
So is this, in a nutshell, what you shared at the Congress, or is this not exactly that, but more of a reminding me of your trajectory from basically Catholic educated, and then with your doctorate also all that study,
yes,
but not really a commitment to ministry, to evangelization, to sharing your faith, until some wonderful person 16 years ago gives you a Bible. This is quite an amazing thing, because we think we send people to Catholic school so that they'll be like you.
Catholic school doesn't do it. And I learned that at the Convocation for Catholic Leaders last year, because a lot of parents are like, why did my child abandon the church when they turned 18? And is it studying religion all these years? Is it, just that experience they want to be rebellious? And what I've come to learn is that we all grew up with different values, different appreciation. And for me, going to Catholic school and getting that foundation was very helpful for me as a personal person in my overall development. But from a spiritual development standpoint, it's studying the Bible, studying the Word, and by myself, sometimes in small groups, but it's studying it and really getting to know the Word and reflecting on it. It's hard to do that when you're in high school.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult.
But let's say all those years of Bible study, was there any mentor, spiritual director, influential leader, or was this some personal journey that you kind of like were blessed to be inspired along the road? Or do you want to introduce us to somebody that helped you?
It was just that journey.
Oh,
because early on, one of the friends who was a Baptist preacher, and his name was Percy Dixon, back when I was living in Fort Lauderdale. And he's like, Ron, God's calling is on your life. You need to go into the ministry. And I was like, Reverend Dixon, I'm Catholic. I'm not trying to be a priest. I don't think God's calling me to be a priest. And we laughed about it, we talked about it, but I didn't see myself as someone who was a priest, a priestly material. And not because I don't think God would call me to be a priest, but I think also I have a lot of other talents, my business talents, business skills, and I love the other businesses that I've run over the years. And I found it hard that I would want to leave those to go and be a priest. So after the Congress of 2012, I started thinking about, well, maybe there's other ways I can do more. And that new evangelization called me out to go out and start preaching the Word. So I've preached in Baptist churches, I've preached in AME churches.
I got to stop you here. Not only are you saying you're a preacher in these other churches, which is very impressive, because they have awesome preachers already.
Yes.
So you're going against the big guys. You also, I just noticed this, and I should have known this, member of the Board of Trustees for Fresno Pacific University.
Yes.
Serves on the committee which provides oversight to the university's biblical seminary. So you're actually involved with the Mennonite community also. Yes. So tell us about these gigs you have in AME churches. How does that even happen?
I've known some of the pastors because as a funeral director, we go into a lot of churches. And I've shared my writings with people and something, just talking about God and faith and values. And I've gone and spoken to churches marketing the funeral business. And then one of the pastors, was joking one day. It's like, hey, when are you going to come and speak in my church? I was like, well, whenever you extend an invitation. So he's like, well, I want you to come and to preach on my birthday. And so I said, okay, I'll be there. And I've never prepared a sermon before. It's a lot different from having a written ministry where you're just writing, sharing things on Facebook, sharing things via email, to now going out there and preaching, studying the word, sharing it with other people. And I never really had thought about doing that until that new evangelization workshop where Cardinal Dolan was like, go out and evangelize. And I took it to heart, said, I'm going to go out and evangelize. I'm going to go out there and get out of my comfort zone, get out of the written word, and actually go out there and verbally share the word with people.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to deliberately. You've done this at the AME churches. You've
Yes.
done this in Protestant churches. What venues do you have in the Catholic Church, which is something we both share?
Well, in the Catholic Church, I'm allowed to, the African American Catholic Ministries, we've helped to schedule certain masses. So Black History Month Mass, Martin Luther King Jr. Day Mass, Black Catholic Month Mass in November. So I've been able to read, and I've actually done research and maybe read about a saint or talk about some Black history and Black Catholic history. So I've been able to participate in masses at that level. I've recently become a lector at St. Rita's Catholic Church.
Super.
So I'm reading once a month on a Mass day. But the Catholic Church doesn't just invite you to come up and give a homily. That's just not something that the church allows us to go out there and do. So what I do is, I do what I give an altar call at cemeteries. When I'm working funerals, my chance to go out and preach in front of the Catholics is at the cemetery.
Tell us about, you've got it on your notes, altar call. You did write an essay
Yes.
for, I got to tell people, Ron not only writes for this group of Facebook friends and people that are collecting those 80 pages of beautiful emails, all compiled, but every issue of the Central California Catholic Life, Ron is a dedicated author and always has a byline, always has a column. And I wind up getting them a little bit early to say, oh, this is awesome. Tell us about that ministry and then the altar call. But I really want you to dig in a little about how you've been able with the Central California Catholic Life to come up with each issue something different and something very very out there. You come up with that essay on Haiti. You come up with very important articles that move us a little bit forward. Tell us about that.
I think that the Spirit of God is within all of us. And the Spirit at times will call me to start thinking about a certain topic or an issue, and it just something that won't get out of your head. And so I get on my computer and I start writing. Sometimes I'll get out my voice recorder and I'll just start talking and taking notes that I'll then transcribe later and put into an essay. And so when God calls me to write and reflect, and I do so, and then I'll go and try to see, is it coherent? Is this something that I want to go share with other people? And there's a lot of times where it doesn't happen every day, but a couple times a month, yes, and sometimes more frequently. And so when it happens, I say, I think that's God's calling for me to go out there and share, this word or this topic. Haiti was one of the big issues because many people don't know the history of Haiti. They don't know why Haiti is poor today. But Haiti was the first free nation in the Caribbean. They rebelled against France and kicked the French out back in the late 1700s. And then when France came back 20 years later with the Armada, trying to reclaim the territory, the rest of the world basically capitulated and made Haiti pay reparations to the French government. And it took them over probably 100 to 150 years to make those payments. Imagine the investments Haiti could have been making in its own country if it wasn't paying this penalty to France. And that's something that people need to know when they think about that nation or why it's poor today. And I think that you look at other issues on immigration or even social injustice in our country, we have to look more and look at things from a Christian perspective and look at our Catholic social teachings to say, how can we change these injustices? How can we make the world better for everyone?
So this altar call ministry you have,
Yes.
Can you give a mini version of what might be your chance and how you don't lose that opportunity as a funeral director to see that as your vocational call? What might be some of the charge you give?
Well, at the end of a funeral, I'll thank the family for coming out for the service, thank the pallbearers for carrying the loved one to their final earthly resting place, thank the pastor or priest who has been there and officiated the service. But then I'll go ahead and encourage people to get to know Jesus Christ. Because if you want to see your loved one again, the only way into the kingdom of God is through Jesus Christ. So whether you accept him today or in the future, accepting Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior, is your only way to salvation. And so I encourage people to get to know him, and more importantly, let Jesus get to know you. God already knows you. He knows your heart. But let him get to know you. And let him embrace you, and you embrace him. And not just, from that, I'll just hedge my bets and accept him just in case. Well, think of it from the point that if you accept Jesus in your thoughts, your words, and in your deeds, your life can be much more positive. It can be much more rewarding, spiritually rewarding. And if, as I mentioned while we were walking over here, that, if you're not, I was chasing the dollar at one point in my life. Well, if you're chasing the dollar, you can't serve God and serve money. Yeah, you can't serve two masters. So you try to encourage people, think about it. Discern what does God want you to do? How does God want you to live your life? How does this departed loved one of yours, how are you going to, show them that you want to be with them in the future? And so you try to encourage people to get to know Jesus. And as a family, and supporters and friends who are there at that service, pray with each other. Talk to one another. Help each other through this difficult time, and help each other going forward to make sure that no one gets off the path. Make sure the kids get on the right path. Make sure that they're getting the right education so that they grow up with the right values, and so they can make good decisions in their lives. So I always just challenge people to go out there and be the best people they can be, but to get to know Christ. And one of the reasons why I started doing that was because, when you go to Mass at the Catholic Church, we get to that point, and especially during a funeral Mass, you get to the point of communion. It's basically the priest says, if you're a Catholic in good standing, you can come on up and have communion. But if not, just go ahead and sit and wait for us till we go through this. Now, I'm trying to figure out, one, what is a Catholic in good standing? Because I still don't know what a Catholic in good standing means. But when we say that, if you're not Catholic, you should take offense. Why not? I believe in Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior. Why can't I share communion with you? My church would allow you to share communion with you, so why can't we share in the Catholic Church? But people don't understand the philosophical differences between our denomination and others, and we don't explain it to them. So at this funeral service, we're not inviting people to come into our church or to come back. We're not inviting them to come and join us. The priests basically do the funeral Mass, and let's go to the cemetery for the conclusion. We bring in millions of people into our churches every year for baptisms, weddings, funerals. Why aren't we inviting them to come join, or to come back and sit in the chapel for adoration, or to pray? We're missing out on a great opportunity to do what Baptists and other people do. They have that altar call at the end of the funeral service, or at the end of a church service. If anyone here hasn't accepted Jesus and you want to, come on up. You don't have to attend my church. I will help you find a church that's right for you, but come on up and accept Jesus today. We Catholics don't do that. And I think we're missing out on a great opportunity to convert people towards a relationship with God, or a stronger relationship with Jesus Christ. And I think that's what we're called to do. That's what we're called to do in Matthew, when Jesus says, go out and spread the word to everyone, to all nations, make disciples of all. Well, why aren't we making disciples of people who walk into our door? They're in our building. They're in our sanctuary. Why aren't we inviting them to come back and join us, or at least to have a relationship with Christ? So I say, let me do an altar call at the cemetery where I have the microphone, I have a captive audience, and I can at least do that and encourage people.
How often do you do that? That is really awesome what you just did. How often do you have the opportunity to do that?
Every chance I get. I try to work as many funerals as possible. I'm even practicing my Spanish so I can encourage people even in Spanish. In Spanish, broken English mixed in, people understand the message I'm trying to get to them. They understand that I'm trying to encourage them to get to know Christ. Because if you think of it, if you let Christ into your heart and let him into your head, you can be anybody you want to be. Your spiritual development, you'll continue to grow because you will think about Christ when you're making decisions. As the Pope was saying, when you're discerning and you want to hear the Word of God and what is really the voice of God, well, when we get to that point, you have to accept God, number one, and then you can go to that level. And back to my own personal discernment, and I tell people when I preach I'm a slow learner. Well, one of my favorite places in college was the Newman Center, at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And I talked about it at our workshop on Saturday. It wasn't until my senior year that I realized that there was a chapel there.
Oh my God.
I did not know that was a Catholic place. So God is funny. God plays games with you because I'm going there, eating lunch, having breakfast, studying there. I had no idea that was a Catholic place. Not until a friend of mine told me he was getting married in December of 1989, in the Newman Center. I'm like, there's a chapel there? Or what, you getting in the hall? He's like, yeah, it's, I was like, okay, I didn't know. I had no idea. So God has put a lot of signals in my path. And so you ask, is there somebody, a guide, someone guiding me? God has been guiding me, and I have been fighting those callings all these years, from the Newman Center to when I was a little boy and going to Sunday school at St. Alphonsus. You know, you did some good things there. They had little gifts for you. I have a pink rosary that I picked out when I was like 8 or 9 years old. Now, there were other toys. What boy picks out a pink rosary at that age? None. But for some reason I did. I still have it on my bed in my parents' house. But that was God. He's basically telling me that He has some plans for me. And He's let me go on, live my life, do my thing. But gradually, through the people in my life, people give me a Bible, He's planted that seed to come back to Him, to share the Word with people, to be a better person, to be a better Christian, and to go out there and try to help others be a better Christian. And I'm the first to admit, I am not perfect. I have my road rage moments out there on the highway when I want to go and tell people a thing or two, and I try to hold back. But changing from trying not to cuss, not to be around people who have foul language, not watching certain things on TV, trying to be a better person, trying to be a different person, trying to exercise better values in the judgment process.
Unbelievable. But one thing I really want to give you a chance to do now, the show is called Looking at Social Justice.
Okay.
And at the end of our little list here, you also say the need for social justice advocacy, criminal justice reform, Colin Kaepernick and Nike, innocent until proven guilty. You want to unpack any of those for an altar call on any of those?
Sure, sure. Just recently, the United States Senate went through a process to confirm Justice Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. And one of the things you heard over and over from the senators was that, you know, a person is innocent until proven guilty. And that's supposed to be the law, the mindset of our judicial system, of our court system, just in general. And so my question is, if you're innocent until proven guilty, how do unarmed individuals, particularly unarmed black men walking down the street or in their car, how do they get shot when they're unarmed and they're innocent until proven guilty? How does James Blake get jumped while standing outside of a hotel in New York if he's innocent until proven guilty? You know, our criminal justice system has gotten off track. And I think that when you look at how many law enforcement officers have violated the law or violated someone's civil rights and aren't convicted of it, they get a free pass basically, and they keep their jobs. And so when you see that, you say, well, how does this continue to happen? You know, we're basically not treating everyone the same. We're not valuing the dignity of all lives in our country. And so that when I look at things, say, well, if we want to improve our country, then the criminal justice system has to be reformed. And it's very important because it's become a profit center where small companies, large companies, individuals are making billions of dollars a year, locking people up and keeping them behind bars. And when injustice does take place, I think I just recently saw that a man just got released after 19 years in Texas, in prison, for a murder of a friend that he did not commit. But the prosecutors withheld information on 2 witnesses that said, oh, the person who came out of the room was white and this gentleman was black. And he was convicted of it. But the prosecutors basically just lied in this case. So if the prosecutors don't do their job properly, and if they're not weeding out the bad apples, and if the men and women in uniform aren't willing to weed out their brothers and sisters in uniform who are bad apples, if we're not doing that, we're going to continue to have injustice. And it's not just injustice against blacks or Hispanics. This is just injustice, period. Anytime you frame anyone, it's an injustice. And there was recently an article about a police officer, a police captain in Miami-Dade County, who basically, Miami Beach, who basically was framing people to hit his burglary statistics, to have a 100% clear rate. He's now going to prison. But his sentence will be less than the amount of time that the people who got convicted went to. It's like, that's just not fair. So we have to look at how do we reform our system. And this is an election year. So we need to be thinking about who are we voting into office. Are we voting in people who are going to make good choices, good decisions, look at rehabilitating people? And again, I'm the first one to have an issue with people who commit crimes. I'm the first one to go out there and want to advocate for the victim. But at the same time, in our society, we have over 3.7 million people behind bars. We have to say, you know what, our system's not working very well. We're not really rehabilitating people. We're not, bringing them back into society effectively. How do we go out there and help people get the skills and the knowledge and the mindset to where they can come back in the community and be valuable members of our society.
Yeah.
How do we do that? And I think part of it is make sure that we're with people who are in office who want that, who want to go out there and change people. Because if it costs $70,000 a year to incarcerate someone, I'd rather work out a deal and pay that person $25,000 a year to stay out of prison. Well, hey, you know what? You pay them $25,000 a year, or you subsidize, put them on minimum wage, you subsidize their wage $1,000 a month. The taxpayer still would save $40,000 to $50,000 a year. And if this person doesn't commit any crime, they're going to pay taxes on that money, and they're going to become a valuable member of society. We've got to rethink how we do things.
One last person we want to bring into our conversation because he's been in the back of our minds, Colin Kaepernick.
Yes.
And Nike. What did you want to say? You've got about a minute and a half.
Okay. Well, when Nike announced they had Colin Kaepernick as a spokesperson, people started complaining about the wages Nike pays people overseas and how unjust they are over there, and how do they want to be this hypocrite. And my approach is, well, when is our society going to start paying people fairly here? Well, women still don't make the same money as men in this society. Professionals at all levels, minorities and women, don't make as much as their male counterparts. So we're going to talk about injustice. Let's talk about paying people and doing things the right way here, not deviating from and using what Nike's doing overseas. Well, let's focus on what we're doing here and how we can make things better. And whether you agree with Colin Kaepernick or not, maybe God in his own way is using Donald Trump and Colin Kaepernick to force a discussion on race, injustice, and inequality in our society. And maybe we ought to look at it from that perspective and start having that dialogue versus just nitpicking and saying, oh, well, we don't like what he's doing. Let's use this opportunity to have the dialogue to see how we can make improvements in our society and make our country a better place.
What I want to say right now at the end of our program is something that looks like, in the beginning of our program, we're hearing someone who's a preacher. We're hearing someone very, very able to share his soul, his effort at discernment, his commitment to really being a very good person. And then once you wind up asking, do you want to stretch a little and tell us something about social justice, that same person, Ron Smith, helps us appreciate it's not only having an interior commitment to goodness, a prayer life, having Jesus enter into your life and you know Jesus and Jesus knows you, but there are issues, social justice issues in our society, and they deserve a response. Not a weak little meek response, but actually with that same passion that Ron has about addressing an altar call to people to really appreciate the chance to be with that person that you love, but you're going to have to shape up to ask us as citizens how we vote, what we do with law, what we do with the criminal justice system, how we value people in their work, how we value all people equally. We are in favor of everyone, and we need to do it equitably all the time. Till next time, God bless.